All right, Florida Panther fans, hockey fans, sports fans, and fans of good-looking men all over the world. I present to you Stu, who wants to present his good friend. Stu, take it away. Go ahead, buddy.
Just honored and just grateful and thankful that our good friend Randy Moller is joining us back by popular demand. I know everybody's been asking, when's Randy coming on? When Randy coming on? We got him. So
Yeah, I'm
how you doing, man?
Happy to be on with you guys. It's great. Everybody's all excited for the season, and away we go.
How was
How's your
summer?
How's your
Yeah.
summer been?
No, it was good. It was really good. Did a little bit of traveling and relaxing and that. And no, it's all good. I'm blessed. My family, everybody is healthy and happy and busy, and that's what it's all about. And yeah, it was an eventful off season as well as far as the Panthers. I just was doing an interview just actually earlier today, and you look back on the Panthers playoff roster from last year to this year, and what is it, 11, 12, 13 players that are no longer on the team. And that's so, even though the Panthers won the President's Trophy, there's quite a bit of turnover in that. But I sum it up that it's like, and there's a lot of teams out there, more than 80%. It's all about salary caps and trying to maneuver, and we're really seeing, guys, that it has become more scientific than who actually earns a right on a team. It's really changed, and it's not a criticism. It's just a reality that most teams are playing and paying their players and are right up against the cap. So you got to do a lot of juggling, and there's got to be a lot of foresight. What your team looks like today could be different what it looks like in a week, a month, a year. You got to plan what your team's going to look like in 2 years, 5 years from now, and project what those salaries are going to be, and that is, man, that is why teams are loading up on a lot of very talented individuals to try and figure their way through what their team is going to look like based on the money that they have to spend underneath the salary cap.
Right.
I know some fans don't want to really hear that much, but it is a big factor in what's going on. And the Panthers are one of those teams. They've got the support from ownership, from the Viola family, to spend up as much as you want up to the cap. And that's a great thing and a great support. Now you just have to figure out how you can get the right team that you think can have the success on the ice working with those numbers. And it's interesting, yet there's a lot of teams that are up against, and they're in a tight spot right now.
Yeah, you make a really good point though about the owners, about Vinny Viola, and because being willing to spend up to the cap. That's not always been the case, and it's not always the case for a lot of other teams. That's a really good point. I want to start with the second biggest change, in my opinion, but was the change that happened first, which is I'm dying to hear your take on Coach Maurice. Most of us are just kind of wondering. We don't, even looking at the players that are the same, you can't plug them in the same way we watched them the last couple of years because, the coaches, different systems will be different. Just give us your take. What do you think we should expect from our coach now?
Well, I'm a little biased because I've known Paul Maurice for 25 years. And especially when he was a coach, and I was just getting into broadcasting, he was coaching in Carolina, and still he was in his third or fourth year. He's still one of the youngest coaches in the NHL, if not the youngest. And I was really impressed the way his teams played, how they prepare to play, but in a selfishly, guys, how he helped me. And I'll explain. Most coaches are busy, and they've got staffs, and they've got to deal with trainers and injured players and that. Paul Maurice has always had the reputation that even though, like, after a morning skate, when he would address the media and take questions, after that, he would invite us broadcasters into his office and just sit around the table or whatever and just talk and talk hockey, talk about his team, talk about the league, talk about the trends and that. And I was like a sponge, and he was very, very giving of his time and explain his philosophies and his strategies and usage of different players and that. So, and he's what the fourth, he's coached the fourth most games in the history of the NHL, and still relatively a young man. And he has coached so many different types of players and seen so many different styles of play. And I was talking to him the other day, and that's what he's really excited about, because he really, when he was not coaching last year after he stepped down from the Winnipeg Jets, he was flipping around, he said, and watching a lot of games. And he kept coming back to the Panthers game. And he was saying, wow, what a team. They attack, they're quick, they drive, they play the right way, they support each other, and all those attributes. And that's what really piqued his interest in maybe coming back and coaching in the NHL again. I found that very interesting. And I asked him specifically about, about the team, about the Panthers team and the style that they play. And he just rattled off on all the different parts of the game, the Barkovs and the Bennett's driving up the middle, the emergence of Anton Lundell, the energy of the Hornquist and the speed of Verhaeghe and Duclair. And he just said, wow, they've got it all. And he is looking forward to the challenge of putting this all together. And yeah, have a nice regular season, whether they get 122 points and win the Presidents and score a zillion goals like they did last year or whatever, and all the comebacks and that. But he wants his team to gel at the right time and be able to take all those positive attributes and change a little bit, tweaks in their game, bringing in a Kachuk, and that to be able to play consistent and long playoff hockey. And I thought that was such a great vision and explanation about what his motivation is. And I think fans that don't know Paul Maurice are really going to understand in his post-game comments and off-day comments and that about this team as the season rattles on. Now, he did say, and he did mention when he was asked about all these new players. There's a lot of new players, and he said, "Hey, there's going to be some adjustments. They've got to get to know. He needs to get to know his players. His players need to get to know him and his staff. New players need to get to know each other. And that's going to take a little bit of adjustment." He did say that, hey, on opening night, the lines and the D pairs that you see, there's a really good chance over the first number of games that could move around and that trying to find that chemistry. So he's a well-versed coach. I think he does well with veterans and with the young players. And but this team is expected to win, and he knows what his job is.
Right. Gotcha. Stu, what you got for me, buddy?
Well, I definitely don't want to dwell on the past and last season, but I am really curious, Randy, because Eric and I have our own theories and how it takes us into the upcoming season. And I'll just put it out to you bluntly. Where do you think we went wrong in the playoffs? How a team could be so dominant in the regular season and basically lay an egg in the playoffs?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing, Stu, is the offense that was so prolific in the regular season for what I think was a number of reasons. Really, and you go back to the Washington series too. I mean, the power play was struggling, and if it wasn't for Carter Verhaeghe, the Panthers probably wouldn't have won that series. Playoffs are so much different than regular season, and it's tough for the average fan to see that when they see the last few regular season games and the first game of the playoffs. Maybe it's a little tough to recognize how much more intense it is, the attention to detail, the physicality, the intimidation. And I think that the Panthers just had a tough time. You've got to change. You've got to be able to adapt and maybe change your game rather than free flowing. And that was so successful for the Panthers that in the playoffs, especially against Tampa Bay, and I give Tampa so much credit. They had a game plan that was going to frustrate, slow down, and take away the confidence of the Florida Panthers, and they worked it through a T. The Panthers were either they were unable or unwilling to maybe change that style that got them all that success in the regular season to be able to have the success in the playoffs. And the other thing too is never count out the Tampa Bay Lightning when they have the best goaltender in the world. And Andre Vasilevsky just stoned them. And a lot of those scoring chances you guys saw on a game-by-game basis where they would score off the rush and that on the power play, they weren't getting those goals. And then it forced the Panthers to play more defensively because the offense was drying up for them. And they just couldn't get those big goals when they needed it. And especially on the power play. That's in a nutshell what happened in the playoffs.
Well, that's exactly what we saw. And it, for the videos that we've been putting out, before the season, we at least I've said that the regular season should be like a preseason game to the playoffs, meaning we should be playing playoff style hockey and forget about showtime and 322 goals and this and that run and gun style. We should be preparing for the playoffs like now. I think another reason why, it went so bad is we had an inexperienced coach that couldn't adjust on the fly versus John Cooper that obviously, found the blueprint on how to beat us and clog things up for us. And like you said, frustrate us. So,
I think Stu, the experience too, the Tampa Bay Lightning have all that experience. They were just coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. They know how to win. And it's just, it gets to some of the small, minute details, winning a battle, winning a face-off circle, getting possession right off the power play, doing all these little things.
Blocking shots.
And blocking shots and you add them all up. And that's one of the main reasons why Tampa was able to win that series in 4 games. But I think the Panthers and Barkov talked about it after that I think they learned from that, and they learn how they're going to have to play. And I think they're going to be better off for it.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Obviously, the big thing right now is all the new players and chemistry, who plays with who. I mean, we've been driving ourselves nuts. I'm sure everybody else has, because all you have to do is look at Twitter and things change, in a minute. But from seeing what you've seen as far as line combinations, I mean, the defense, is pretty much, we kind of sort of know is set with Forsling and Ekblad. It looks like they've substituted, Stahl and Montour. I thought Carlson and Montour would have been a better pair. And then, but I'm really want to focus in on the lines and integrating the new players with our vets. So where do you see the line combos?
Well, and I really like, because obviously broadcasting the games, I know these players, and I'll go through them. Like, I thought Nick Cousins played so well against the Panthers last year, and some of the games that I saw. He's 29 years old. He's versatile. Colin White, same thing. Rudolph Balcers, same thing. The one thing that these guys all have in common is they work hard and they can skate. And that's going to, I think, there are some questions out there about the Panthers. They had such a fast, speedy team. Would that maybe go backwards a little bit? I don't think so. I think these players, and I was watching practice, and White, Balcers, Lundell, Lomberg, Loisterainen, these guys, they all skate so well. So that high tempo style of play, I believe, will be the bread and butter of the Panthers, like it was the last 2 years going into this year as well. They outskated teams on a nightly basis. They outchanced teams because they were quicker. And these players that are coming in, I think, are going to be a nice complement with the Panthers. Their stars up front: the Barkovs, the Kachucks, the Bennetts, the Reinhardts, the Verhaeghes.
Gotcha. So leading into that, I'm going to ask your opinion, and you give us what you can. So we all know the trade that shocked almost the entire world, but I would like to raise my hand because it didn't shock me because I predicted it 3 days before it happened. And so we wake up, or at least I wake up, and my phone is just a mess, and it's just and I see that it's Huberdeau and Uyghur and Swint in a first for Kachuk in the fourth. And I guess the first part of the question is, everybody knows everybody's story about where they were when they found out about the trade. So I'm curious about how it was for you. And then just talk about all the Calgary Flames fans. In fact, almost all the fans except for Florida Panther fans are just so sure that Calgary won the trade. So you are the representative for the not just yet fan club. So the mic is yours.
Well, I was surprised, just like anybody else. I think it's been explained, and Bill Zito has explained it, and it's not hard to figure out that it would have been very difficult. They love Jonathan Huberdeau and they love Mackenzie Weegar. Those two players, such a big part of the Panthers' success, especially the regular season over the last couple of years, and that there's no doubt. But like I said, going back when we first started this conversation about the mathematics and the science and as according to the salary cap, that it's going to be very, very difficult. It would have been very difficult to fit a Jonathan Huberdeau who was up for a big raise and a long-term deal, and same thing with Mackenzie Weegar.
Right.
And if you can't foresee that you're going to be able to manage that, especially when you got, you take a look at the Panthers' salaries. Of Barkov's $10 million a year starts this year. Verhaeghe shoots up. You got the Reinhardt. You got the Kachuk at 9.5. You got the Ekblad at what, 8.5, whatever it is. Bob, Sergei Bobrovsky, and that. So
and Spencer's nice raise too.
Yeah, and so you're facing a reality, and sometimes you have to do things not because you want to, because you have to, right, in the short term and the long term of the team. Okay, my view on the trade, and it has been, and maybe I get criticized for it, but I really don't care. I think it's going to work out beautifully for both teams, and I hope so. I hope Huberdeau and Weegar have great success in Calgary, and I think they will. I think that when you get an opportunity to acquire a player like Kachuk and the attributes and the talents and the different things that he brings to a team, it doesn't come along very often. And for them to be able to acquire a player like that. Now, remember, you guys have watched this team for a long, long time. We've never had a player like a Kachuk, a power forward, right, that can score 44 goals and 100 points and go around and get underneath every player's skin and punch guys in the head and rough up the goaltender and cause all kinds of havoc. Watch him play and play with that passion. He's a lot like, I use example of different skill sets, but like a Patrick Hornquist. He plays every shift like it's his last. And I love that. And the passion that he brings, he's got a self-confidence that I think is really going to rub off on this hockey club. And if he plays the way that he has played throughout his NHL career, the fans in South Florida are absolutely going to love him. And it's going to change the way this team plays sometimes on a nightly basis. A lot of times, guys, the Panthers are involved in what I like to call ice-capade games, where it is just skating and offense and run and gun and that. But there's going to be some nights going into Boston, playing it against Washington, big, heavy teams, that you're going to need that type of dynamic player. And the Panthers have it now. The other thing I'd like to say about the trade, the Panthers couldn't get past Tampa Bay 2 years ago.
Right.
Last year, they couldn't get past Tampa Bay in the second round, 2 years in a row. Something has to change. You can't just keep rolling out the same lineup or whatever and expect the same success. I think the Panthers management, they did a real self-evaluation of their hockey club, and they felt that, you know what, we've got to change some things. And if we can, maybe acquire a type of player and this and that, it might change the dynamics. And that's where I give them full marks for trying to do it.
Yep.
Because if you keep doing the same thing and keep coming with the same results, it's that's not a recipe for success long term or job stability. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's
all you have to do is look at 0 for 26 on the power play. But we said the same exact things that you were saying. Unfortunately, somebody had to be. I'm not going to say the scapegoat, because let's face it, both Barkov and Huberdeau have not stepped up to their potential in the playoffs.
Well, it's interesting the way you put it, because it was exactly how I was feeling before the trade. I talked to a couple of people about it. It's like, you know what? I'm excited, but I was just concerned that exactly what you said, Randy, that we're just going to throw the same guys out there and play the same way and get the same result. So it wasn't, I mean, I wasn't advocating for the trade, but when when he came available, I made the video, I predicted the trade, and I didn't think anything of it. So when they did it, first I was shocked, but then, once I started really realizing what had happened, and like you're saying, the numbers, which
That's it.
I don't want to cut Stu off because I know he's got more, but I just want to dovetail into just one more thing. Because we're talking about the numbers and everything like that. This is me. My job is to overreact so people have somebody to correct. So I'm fine with it. But when they gave Spencer Knight the 4.5, the first thing the fire alarm started going off in my head, are like, are we really going to pay 14.5 for goaltending the rest of Bobrovsky's contract? It's just, Stu and I both thought Spencer would get a bridge deal, but I also kind of thought that Spencer was going to kind of be like, look, it's not my fault I can't play, and almost want to get a contract that he would be able to get a chance to earn somewhere else. I kind of felt like somebody else would be willing to give him $4 or $5 million and put him in net, because, and just let him develop like Markstrom. So just give me your take there. I know you can't speak on movement of players and everything, but just how do you think that all came to be?
Well, the one thing, and I've said it time and time again, guys, and I'll say it again till I'm blue in the face. Goaltending is not an issue for the Florida Panthers. And they're only one of maybe a small handful of teams that don't have issues with their goaltending. The Panthers don't have any issues with their goaltending. So let's just leave that aside. Bob was unbelievable last year. Great. Yeah. Spencer, when he came in, he played well as well. So that's a luxury that a lot of teams don't have. So you can just park that as far as I'm concerned. Yes, is it taking up a good chunk of the salary cap? Absolutely. But, you have to identify players on your team that are keepers, or, as I like to say, exit strategy eventually. And obviously they identified that Spencer Knight is going to play a big part today, tomorrow, the future, a year, 2, 4 years from now. So if you have to lay out those contracts and make sure that they're in the fold, that sometimes you have to do that. It's the devil is in the details as far as that.
Right. Yeah. No,
I actually said that, we were probably looking at $5 million for, something long term, and we had to lock them up, because after, we'll see what happens after this season, but for sure after next season, he's our starting goalie.
And the one thing too, guys, I'm not trying to make light of it or whatever, but you got to remember that if you take the personalities out of it, and that's why fans love the sport, and that's why we love the sport, and that, but these are commodities. And, you know, a former general manager used to say, hey, we appreciate the effort on the ice and that, but always remember that players are commodities. And unless they got a no movement contract, things can move, and they will move. Look what happened, guys, from the last game of the playoffs last year to the opening night roster of this year. What, 11, 12 players or 11, 12, 13 players that aren't on the roster that were last year? There's a lot of moving parts. So you can't really sit there and say, oh boy, you know what are we going to do in 4 years with Anton Lundell and all that. You can't really worry about that. You have to have a strategy for short term. What's your team's going to look like in a month, 6 months, trading deadline, at the draft, free agency, and then the start of next year, and even 2 years down the road. But there's going to be a lot of movement going on, and especially in this era of the salary cap and not being going up that much, and teams having to lock in their superstar, especially young players, and the numbers that you're seeing these players are getting. Boy, it is a real gamble. It's a poker game out there, and you're just hoping you're going to be on the right side and with chips left.
Right. So I want to ask you about the defense. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I have a request for you to talk to the NHL. And that request is, I do not think that they should abuse the fan base in such the manner that they did by the date and timing of the final cuts on the NHL rosters is right in the middle where half of us are watching our football team get beaten. It shouldn't. I mean, it makes for great content when I overreact for 5 minutes at halftime. But seriously, I got to sit there and I'm watching the Dolphins lose to the Jets already, and people are like, "Hey, by the way, they got rid of they waived Carlson and Heponiemi." It's not a good mix. Like so,
it's a cluttered sports. It's a cluttered sports landscape. That's for sure. I know. I'm with you too. I'm with you. I was at a reception yesterday, and during that time, and we just found ourselves, checking the phone all the time about, waiver wires and who's getting put on waivers, and did they get through waivers and who they're picking up. And I know it's just, we live it.
So the question, and it's kind of the same for Stu, what's your overall impression of the defense? And you can either call Stu and I crazy or not, but a couple of hours before everybody was waived, Stu and I did a video, and we both agreed that the only thing that we disagreed with Coach Maurice about was we both felt Carlson should be on the second pair. So you can imagine our reaction when he got waived. So what's your picture of the defense overall? And then
I think one of the reasons,
what are we missing about
this
Carlson?
Is just me.
We really like him.
Well, this is just me, and I'm going to expand on it, Eric. Is I think one of the reasons why the Panthers considered the possibility of moving Mackenzie Weegar is, and like I said, they loved him, and I love him too. I love the way he plays. Is the emergence of Forsling and Montour, and we saw it last year with Forsling all season long. We saw it with Montour the last couple months of the season when he really, really took off and carrying the puck and using that speed and got a little bit more aggressive, taking chances in the offensive zone and that. So if you got Forsling and Ekblad, and that's one of the reasons I think they were comfortable getting Mark Stahl, is Mark's a stay-at-home defenseman, and now Brandon Montour got the green light. He can go, and he's got the talent. I like the way love the way he plays and that. And then you got Gudas back on there, that physical presence. He had an excellent year last year, and with the hits and the plus minus and that. And then I'm looking forward to this Josh Mahara. He comes in, and that he was a third round pick with the Ducks, and he's played 79 games, played 38 last year. They really, the scouts and the management of the Panthers really think that he has a good upside, and he's going to fit in. He can really skate and that. So I'm comfortable with that. As far as Lucas Carlson, I liked his skill set, and that, but sometimes guys, decisions have to be made, and a lot of times it's not popular, maybe for a certain part of the fan base or whatever, but you got to make decisions. And well, look at Heponiemi. I mean, he had an excellent preseason and that, but it's a numbers game, and that. But hey, just because we're looking at the lineup that they're going to start with on Thursday doesn't mean by Saturday or Monday that it's going to stay the same. It probably change or whatever and that. So injuries happen, players up and down, trades, waivers, and that. Don't ever use absolute ink.
Right.
Yeah, because it's gonna change. It'll
Gotcha.
change, whatever.
Gotcha.
But I'm comfortable. Dan, the long-winded answer, Eric, is I'm comfortable with the Panthers defense. They play the way that they can, and that they have that puck possession and move the puck. They can all skate. They can all be involved. That's the way the game is going. That's the way I like it.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Stu?
No,
Well, okay. Well, then I'm going to tell you a story. You can tell me. This has been my prediction for the season. So I'm going to give you what my take has been, and you've actually already almost stole my thunder, but I promise you I have the receipts that I was thinking this first. I've been telling everybody this and they all think I'm crazy. I've been saying that because of the new coach and the new system and the new players, et cetera, I've laid it out every 20 games. I think we're going to start a little bit slow. I think it makes the perfect story for all of the people that want to say the Calgary Flames won the trade. They're all going to be, aha, we got you. And then slowly but surely, the Panthers will be better every single month of the year. Toronto's going to win the division. They're going to win a round. We're going to beat them, and then we're going to beat the Flames in the cup. That's it. That's my story.
Wow, I like that. I'll accept that. I mean, yeah, you know what? I've been asked so many times, last year, 122 points, 340 some goals, historic. I mean, there was 12 or 13 players on the Panthers last year that had career years, their best career offensive years, and that. To sit here, and I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, that's going to absolutely repeat itself, and that it might not. I think the Panthers will be comfortable that they secure a playoff spot sooner than later. And the key is, and Paul Maurice has talked about it, is that when they hit the playoffs, that they are going to be a much tougher team to play.
Yep.
And they're going to be more rounded, and they're going to be a little bit more determined in certain areas, and puck possession and puck battles and physicality and that. That's what we saw that won in the playoffs last year. Yeah. You saw the skill set of the Colorado Avalanche. There's no doubt that they're highly skilled, but I tell you what, they were mentally tough, and they were physical when they need to be, and determination and winning those puck battles, and that impressed me just as much as the skill set that they displayed.
Yeah, they took it up a notch or two.
That's it.
It's something that we should watch and learn.
Yeah.
That's why what I was saying earlier, that all right, let's not, I mean, it's a long season. So let's just say towards the middle to latter part of the season, we should be gearing up into that, not only mental state, but the physical. We should start playing playoff hockey, a month and a half before the regular season ends.
I agree. And I mean, it's easy to say, and there's no switch that you can just turn it on. But I think if you have the mindset, and that's what Paul Maurice has talked about, that to take this team to the next level and ratchet up a notch in all areas of their play when the time comes, when it's when it becomes playoff time. And I'm looking forward to it. I have the confidence that they will be able to do it. They have the skill set. It's maybe going to take a little bit of time to get some chemistry with these new players that are on the team, and with the coaching staff, and that's natural. I don't think they're going to go 13-0 to start the season. I'm not predicting that, but I think because of the team that they put together, that they are going to be very competitive, and they're going to get the goaltending. It comes down to those special teams and bottom six scoring and input and stuff like that. I hope that like a guy like Rudolph's Balsers and Colin White, and that they have their best year of their career so far. We saw it with Verhaeghe. We saw it with Forsling. We saw it with Montour and that. Brandon Montour, when he was in Buffalo, was struggling his confidence and that. Sam Bennett, bang, just take off and go. That's what I'm really excited about. And these players, they're going to get an opportunity. They are going to be put into a position to succeed. It's up to them, and that's what makes it fun. That's why I love covering it.
Yep.
Bosses looked really good, and
yeah,
Dalpe looked really good until he got hurt. I was impressed. I was impressed with both of those players.
Yep.
Going to the game. We need a good start. Like you said, we're not going to go 13-0.
No. I don't think anybody expects that. They don't expect that, but you want that constant improvement and the upside of the confidence and the chemistry of these players. And like I said, guys, it's a long year. I've got all the lines and all the D pairs right now.
Right.
In a month, I'll be throwing that away and redoing the whole thing.
Right.
So,
right.
I'm really curious to see who gels with Tkachuk. I mean, obviously, we think Bennett because of, past history with those two players. Of course, we were hoping Barkov, but I see a Tkachuk Bennett.
I like that, Stu. I like that line because can you imagine teams now having to play against Bennett and Tkachuk, and then you got the speed of Balsers on the side that can put the puck in the net, and that could be a really dynamic line. Whether
it's a 1A, it's a 1A, 1B.
It is. I really like that. There's going to be a lot of banging and crashing going on that line, and they're going to be so tough to play against. And that's what it's all about. When teams talk about the respect of other teams, they say, you remember when Washington, the couple years there, including when they won the cup, how difficult it was to play against them. They were big and strong and physical, and it was just tough. It's very tough. Same thing with the Boston Bruins and that same thing with Colorado now. St. Louis Blues. They're tough to play against. They're heavy teams, and that's what it's all about, guys. Speed, physicality, size, talent. You put it all together, get some goaltending, and man, you can win a lot of games.
Amen. So last thing real quick before we let you go. In the East, we'll stick in the East. Any thoughts in terms of which team may or may not slip out of the playoffs and which teams might have improved enough to bump in?
Well, my opinion is you had the haves and the have-nots last year. There was such a big disparity between, Tampa, Toronto, Florida, and let's put in Boston, okay, in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah.
Buffalo retooling, Detroit, Ottawa got off to a horrible start. And remember, there was just such a spread. And even though Ottawa played better towards the end of the year, Buffalo a little bit as well. Detroit had some spurts in there in the second half or what, but they were so far behind the other four teams that there was no way they could catch them. I think, especially Ottawa, they are going to grab and steal points away from the top four. So's Ottawa, so's Detroit. Buffalo's going to steal some points away from the big fours like we talk about, it's going to be much closer and I think that's great. I think it's great. Ottawa's had a phenomenal offseason. They got a lot of talent on that team. These teams are all young. The New Jersey Devils, all that talent. It's time for them to take a step up, and they're going to steal points away from teams in the Eastern Conference and that. So, I'm looking forward to it. As far as a dark horse making the playoffs in the in the East, I'd have to say that it's going to be the Ottawa Senators.
Right.
Ottawa. I just have that much respect for the talent that they put together. And if they can get it all together and get some pretty good goaltending, they can do some damage and that, so Carolina is going to be strong, guys. The Rangers are going to be strong. The Islanders, they got off to that horrible start last year and had this 15 straight games on the road or whatever it was. And then the COVID hit and that they're going to be better this year. I'm not quite sure about Washington or Pittsburgh. They're older teams now. They could go up a little, they could go down, but I never want to bet against a team that's got Sidney Crosby or Ovechkin, and that's what I'm so excited about, because there's so much. What about the Tampa Bay Lightning? They've been such a premier team. Can they keep playing at that high level? I believe that they can, but you never know. And they've got the world's best goaltender. So very interesting. I think the long-winded answer, Eric, it's going to be much more competitive in the Eastern Conference than it was the last 2 years.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Randy Moller.
Here's my last point that I want to talk about, because I think this might be the make or break for the team. And that is, you said, Randy, special teams, the power play. Not so much the PK, but let's just focus on the power play, because Eric and I have been talking about it, and I've been talking about it. Montour seems to be a much better quarterback than Ekblad. You put Ekblad in that Stamkos Ovechkin spot and just feed him one-timers and let him score his 15 goals on the power play, which I'm throwing it out there. I think that's possible. I think Ekblad, if he stays healthy and starts gelling with Forsling, which I think he's good for 20 goals this year. I'm saying 18 to 20, but I'm saying at least 10 to 15 on the power play. If we keep it, throw the 4 forward lineup out and just have Montour and Ekblad on the point, or even Forsling and Ekblad, but have Ekblad in that spot for his one-timers. And then now I'm looking at the PK, and I'm thinking, we got Lundell and Barkov, and then is it going to be, because Huberdeau stepped into a nice PK role last year, so he's gone. So what do you think, Luosterainen and Reinhart as your second PK? So just your take on the power play and the PK, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I haven't dived into it. I'm looking forward to seeing the first unit, second unit. I kind of was told I couldn't go to practice today, but who's on there and that, and it's all about execution, guys. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not gonna give excuses, but they have the talent to be a top 6-7 power play in the NHL, and I think they realize that. I think they have the confidence. It's all about execution and the chemistry. Getting Tkachuk in front of the net. I think that's going to be a big plus. And then it's up to the players like Barkov and you mentioned Ekblad and Montour and that from the outside. They got to get those shots through, and if they do, they'll have success and that. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how much success they have on the power play. On the penalty kill, I think they're fine. They're going to miss Weegar a little bit, but I think they have the personnel to be able to kill those penalties and that. And again, you got to work as a unit. Everybody's got to rely on each other. Everybody's got to trust each other and that. So I know they've worked quite a bit on special teams and stuff. So it's going to be fun.
Great. All right, buddy. We really appreciate you doing this, taking time out of your day. And
My
just
pleasure.
can't thank you enough. Everybody always asks, when are you getting Randy? When is Randy coming back?
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking forward to it. I love coming on with you guys. I love talking hockey and talking Panthers. That's what it's all about. We all live and breathe it and that, and to be able to have a platform and me, I can talk hockey till the day is long. So have me on again, and we'll after we get this season started, and we'll take a look back on the first number of games and see where we're at. How's that?
all right. Thank you, sir. We really appreciate it. And we
Okay.
will see you again real soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Toodaloo.
Have a good one.
Yep.